African billionaire Aliko Dangote is being courted by Gabon's president, Brice Oligui Nguema, to invest in the country's cement and fertilizer industry. The invitation comes amidst a rift between Dangote and the Nigerian government over his refinery project. Dangote has faced challenges in Nigeria, including a dispute with oil marketers and government officials who claim his refinery is not yet licensed to operate.
Meanwhile, Gabon offers a new opportunity for Dangote to expand his business with potential benefits including job creation and enhanced industrial capacity. The move highlights Gabon's efforts to attract foreign investment and diversify its economy. Joining us this morning is Global Affairs Analyst Ejike Okpa. Good morning and thanks for joining us. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. I mean, it may have started, as a very little rumor, but it seems to be actually materializing, which is, of course, the expansion of the Dangote industry, outside Nigeria. So I want to get your reactions, first of all, to the way things have been in the last 2 weeks, the controversy surrounding the refinery project, the seeming lack of support from the Nigerian government, and, of course, the criticism that the Nigerian government has received from Akinwumi Additional, from Atiku Abubakar, from Peter Obi, and many others about their seeming lack of support for the refinery.
Well, it's what's going on with the Dangote refinery and steps and the years to this point shows you, there's something wrong with the project itself. When you want to do a refinery, the Dangote refinery is not owned by Nigerian government. Dangote himself does not have access to the crude. I think even when this was announced, I said, okay, how is he going to get to the crude? What's called the feed system. Is it by pipeline or is it, how is the crude? Because the refinery is just basically a chemical process where you take a barrel of something and you turn it into various products. So he still went ahead and did the refinery, and now he's running into the same thing. And that is, for those of us who are into project analysis, is coming back to hurt him. How was he going to get? The Nigerian government said, okay, we're going to supply you this crude at a discount so that you can refine and sell it back to us, or are you going to buy the crude at the open market rate? But he still went ahead and built the refinery, and now he's stuck. You don't do that. If you go around the world, you see those who do refinery always have access to the crude. And he didn't have that as an agreement in place. I guess he felt, okay, I'm going to do it, and after the fact, and then the after the fact is what is harming him. Whether everybody else is saying Nigeria should support him, the first thing should have been done first. And then what you see with the Dangote is Dangote over the years has become a beneficiary of undue government support, which again is an antitrust and a monopolistic position that has given him advantages over everybody else. So sooner or later, he's going to run into a problem. And that's what the problem is now. He's trying to figure out, what do I do? I build this massive investment, borrowed money, or had other people invest in it. Now I don't know what to do. He doesn't have the license. It gives you something to pause. Gives you who was behind it. Who was encouraging him. And now, Angola or Gabon is inviting him. Again, as a government. Dangote is a master at dealing with government. He has never won any request for proposal. If competition were to be open, I don't think Dangote would be one winning it. So he has undue advantage, and undue advantage in business oftentimes turns around to hurt the person because it's antitrust. If you go back to America when the Rockefellers controlled the oil industry, the Congress had to come back and tell them you have to break it up. That's why you have Chevron and Mobil and every other thing that came out of that. Dangote, sooner or later, is going to be faced with that because he has benefited unduly from government patronage. And people are watching. People are going to, speak up. And then that speak up is what we are seeing some of it now.
Okay, so are you saying that, all that is happening currently, all that he has been speaking about, that is maybe, rightful because he has benefited unduly from the government? And if, you say that he's benefited unduly from the government, What does that say about the government then in that case? What does that say about the government and its support for other businesses and maybe for competition?
Well, what it says is that the government is also part of this whole monopolistic stuff. And the Nigerian government is notorious. They are ready to stifle one business, in support of another. And again, when Dangote started just being a commodity supplier, sugar, rice, and cement, and all of that, everybody else who was in that business was stifled just to support Dangote. And people may not openly speak about it, but internally they're going to be trying to find ways to undermine him, because again, Dangote ego, look at how he has done the things he's done it because of government support. When I went to Obasanjo Presidential Library, I found that Dangote was the biggest, supporter of that. So what does that tell you? If you go back, so it was during Obasanjo that Dangote started to surface the way he has surfaced. Because again, Ibeto was in the cement industry, so many other things, but they were stifled just to support Dangote. And again, it's one of those things is, sooner or later, somebody's going to find a way to hunt him. And they're hunting him and they're hurting him. And he doesn't know how to compete. He doesn't know how to be fair. He's running around and government are inviting him. And again, good businessmen are, competition is good for business, because that's what is going to see who is better and who is good and who is going to survive the challenges. So I'm not wishing him bad. I'm just saying, hey, the chicken has come home to roast, and let's see whether he can handle the heat.
Well, we'll see how things turn out, but, one thing that has been made clear, is the criticism from the current administration and, of course, the call for them to, regardless of whatever, emotions that they have towards Dangote and his past dealings with previous governments, they should support, this current project because it will benefit the country somehow, some way. But I also want to ask, he did, make mention, maybe in a subtle way lay some allegations that top members and top executives of the Nigerian government and of the NNPC have refinery investments in other countries like Malta. They, of course, have not been able to confirm or deny that. But, what do you think about that particular allegation? And is there a possibility that that is maybe one of the reasons that we've not been able to see proper development of Nigeria's own refineries?
But one thing that is common in Nigeria is allegations are made and nobody actually comes back to say, here is the proof. Crude is not air. If you're going to refine crude in another country, you should be able to go to that country and trace what type of crude. Remember, refineries are not just built for the sake of building them. You build them specifically for the type of crude. And Nigerian crude is specific, it's just light burning crude. So there are refineries that are built for that. If you say there are Nigerian crude is being refined in Malta, that's a no-brainer. Just trace it, go to Malta, ask the question, where are the crude coming from? And then oftentimes, there's this open request for information, file it. And sometimes that's why I said the Nigerian Bar Association is just a bar association, bar in the sense of they're just a bunch of drunkards there. Nigerian Bar Association should have a public integrity committee. And the public integrity committee is anytime something is affecting Nigerian overall economic thing, they should, with their legal knowledge, both internally and international, reach out and say, can you guys verify this on behalf of Nigeria? Or they file a compelling lawsuit against the country or the facility that is outside and said, address this allegation. But they haven't done it. Then you have the signs, the senior advocates of Nigeria, who by now should be legal minds who have risen beyond just to go into court to deal with issues on behalf of Nigeria. So there are ways you can address allegations so that you give people the confidence and then also the ability to trust what is coming out. But they just say it and it goes away. And then you fuel this rumor, you fuel this unnecessary reaction. And that is not good for a country as big as Nigeria. Nigeria is 200 million people. There's so much emphasis on oil, but how much oil does Nigeria really produce? Less than 3 million barrels a day. And the economics behind oil is not a very sophisticated thing. It's how many barrels produced times how much you sell it. That economy, anybody can do it. It's just a multiplication factor. So by now, oil is creating a huge excitement for Nigeria when other sectors are being stifled. So, but it's being stifled because Nigerians are not getting good information about what their economic capabilities are. Everybody wants to be in the oil business. I live in Texas. Texas produces 5 to 6 million barrels of oil a day, and we don't even celebrate people who work in the oil industry in Texas, because at the end of the day, the way Texas state makes money is through taxes. So we're not invested in the physical structure that produces the oil. We just, wait for you to produce it, and we just, get our tax money and we move on. But Nigeria is actually selling and producing, and then it creates excitement because Nigeria is the major oil producer. Yeah, you're a major oil producer, but look at how many people you have to feed. Any country that has their population in triple digits don't rely on commodity to survive. Nigeria has relied on commodity sales, and they have not done strong economic policies and programs to attract attention, foreign direct investment into the other sector. Everyone talks about oil and oil and oil. And almost like, what is this oil thing? Kuwait produces the same amount of barrels with 400 and something thousand Kuwaitis. Qatar, and Nigeria with 200 million. So how are you going to compete? So, people in Qatar can just sell 2 billion barrels of oil and write a check for $10,000 to everybody that is a Qataris. But Nigeria can afford it. Nigeria is the poorest oil-producing country of the OPEC member nations. Go look at it. You look at how many produced times how many people that you're going to feed, and you see where Nigeria is on that scale. It's the poorest country of all oil-producing countries because of the size of the population.
All right. So now, as there are conversations about Dangote potentially having conversations, setting up shop in Gabon, what are your thoughts about, how he might be able to fare? You say that he's benefited unduly from the Nigerian government. Do you think that Gabon will be a fair playing ground for his business? How do you see this proceeding?
Well, again, it's another government invitation. It's not like the government of Gabon issued a request for proposal, what we call RFP. If RFP were to be issued by Gabon, they said, okay, we're looking for companies to come in here and do X, Y, Z for us, and then they go through all that whole process of review, capacity statement, and they pick Dangote, then that should be something to celebrate. But now they're inviting him. Who knows? Again, that's what I said. Dangote is in bed with government, and that gives him the monopolistic advantages and gives him all that undue advantages that he exploits and uses to say, hey, I'm a businessman. Dangote is not a sophisticated businessman. If you look at all the stock associated with companies owned by Dangote, none of them is worth $1 a share equivalent. You go look at it. So here is the richest black man or the richest Nigerian, and on a global scale, your company, none of the companies associated with you is listed on any major stock exchange. And then when you list them in Nigeria, you are selling them at 400 or something naira per share, and 400 and something naira per share divided by the exchange rate of 1,500 to $1, that means like 25 cents. That tells you right there. That's not somebody you want to go put money. Like America said, I'm putting my money, I'm putting my bet on you. So Dangote has not achieved the level. By now, the richest black man in the world or the richest Nigeria should be like Warren Buffett. If you want to buy, Berkshire shares, you're talking about, almost $10,000 a share. But here we are, the richest black man with all the cement and everything associated with him. By now, Dangote should be a brand. That means you don't have to like the man. You like what he's doing and you invest in his company. And if he doesn't do well through this, stock purchases, you can buy him and kick him out. But you can't, because he is not performing. His stocks are not performing. They may be performing for the average Nigerian, but on a global scale, nobody places bets on Dangote because of the way he has achieved his success, and that achievement is through antitrust and monopoly, and the world frowns at monopoly. Maybe back in the early 1900s it worked, but right now, no. In America, if such a thing were to happen, there would be lawsuits, against all those things, and their thing would have collapsed. So Dangote should be a competitive businessman, win fair and square, and not deal with government where you get an undue advantage.
But is that his fault? Can we say that that is really Dangote's fault as much as it's the government? If there really is, if we can categorically say...
It is his fault.
Okay.
It is his fault.
How is it his fault?
It is his fault because of the way, you know about eBay. Ibeto is another guy who was in the cement industry and importing stuff, and so many other Nigerians. And Dangote is known to have gone after the sources or gone to the government to say, hey, stifle these people so that I can get an undue advantage. That is his fault. Tell me any business Dangote has won on an open and fair competition. Tell me, is it importing rice or sugar or cement? Tell me. And tell me if the government put out a request for proposal. That is, when the government puts out a request for proposal, that means everybody responded. And we review it and we make an award.
The claims about stifling Ibeto's business, has, been a popular, I would call it a rumor, but do we have any facts
yes,
that Dangote actually...
Of course, I met Ibeto. Let me tell you, I don't talk about facts. I'm not a beer parlor guy.
Right.
When I say something, I can back it up with information. I met Ibeto in Dallas, and this was back when Obasanjo was in office. And I said, Mr. Ibeto, I'm not saying this because he's Igbo and Igbo. I don't have any personal relationship with him. But when he brought that up, I said, Mr. Ibeto, this is how you can go about that issue. And he looked at me and said, what do you mean? I said, this is how you can go about it, at least to get a fair hearing and see what happens. And he said, Ejike, look, in Nigeria, things don't work that way. I said, well, then deal with it. And that dealing with it is he's out of business. He's stifled. And that goes back to the same thing I was telling you. Obasanjo was the head of, the president at the time, and Obasanjo was, favored Dangote. If you doubt me, make a trip to the Obasanjo Presidential Library in Abeokuta and go and see the people that made the donation for the building of the library.
What about Lafarge? What about BUA?
Lafarge was already in the business before he came in, and we don't have such claims against Lafarge.
Yeah, again, because he's been in business before him doesn't really mean anything. It is who is the favored guy, who is our favorite, who knows how to go behind the scenes and cut a deal. I'm just saying, hey, I give it to him. He's been able to eliminate a whole lot of competition. But when you do that, always remember, he who has the last laugh has the best one. Maybe, his sunshine is about to dim. Maybe people are beginning to wake up and say, why have we rewarded this particular individual for what he has done? Does it mean that we are not good enough? I don't know. Maybe he will still survive it, but Dangote is under a great heat. If the refinery that he has touted to be the best and the biggest done in Africa, it doesn't even have a license. Anybody who's a student of economic analysis or business analysis will say, well, how did he get here? Why would you go ahead and build a refinery? Now, you tell me, is there a pipeline that is dedicated to supply? Dangote does not own Nigerian crude. And if you're going to refine, in Texas, we have ExxonMobil refinery, which is the biggest in America. ExxonMobil produces their oil and they send it directly. And other refiners supply ExxonMobil refinery, because it's not something you just do. Refinery is not like your filter system. It's a very complicated process based on the type of crude. So ExxonMobil is not going to come back and say, oh, we don't have crude to refine, because they own the feeder system, and the feeder system is what? The crude itself. So anybody who is going to approve you for refinery, just like power plant, if you were to build a power plant in Texas, the first question they will ask you, what is your source of water to cool down that power plant? If you can't show the source of water, they're not going to give you approval. So how was Dangote able to get to build the refinery when he has not secured the supply route? He said, he was going to bring it by batches. You don't bring
just to clarify. Just to clarify, you're implying that the whole business history of Aliko Dangote has been mostly supported by his relationship with the Nigerian government, not necessarily because he is a shrewd and a proper businessman who was understood the Nigerian economy and the Nigerian business space well enough to become who he is today. And remember, it's not just cement and crude now. There's, of course, his investments in FMCGs, there's sugar, there's spaghetti, there's many other things. Are you saying, that his whole career history is mostly because of the support of the Nigerian government?
I'm not telling you what you don't already imagine. It's just that maybe you will not say it the way I'm saying it. What I'm telling you is, you go look at every sector of the business that Dangote has claimed or dominate. How did he get there? Maybe as a small-time businessman at the time he was doing it, but when he got to, remember the word shrewd doesn't mean you have done everything right. Shrewd can also mean that you know how to undercut everybody else. Shrewd also means that you are mean. You can go behind the scene and yak off their head. So my point is, you tell me, when all this other sector that Dangote has excelled, did the Nigerian government issue a request for proposal or a request for information, and they entertained everybody and they reviewed it and they said, okay, now you're the winner? That is what they call fair competition in business. But when you are just single-handedly selecting somebody to reward them to do certain things, it's antitrust. You go look up the word antitrust or monopoly. Monopoly is the old word for it, but in today's market it's called antitrust or inside trading. Inside trading in America, a lot of people have gone to jail because now you get information other people wouldn't have gotten and you are using it to your advantage. That's called inside trading. But when you are just being selected because the head of state or somebody who has power say you are the man with that, considering everybody else, then it's antitrust.
All right.
So all of those things have applied it to Dangote. And again, I'm not saying this because, I don't like the man, I like the man. I could care one way or the other. But my point is, when I look at the stocks associated with the richest black men in the world, we can find out that none of them is trading above $1 a share.
All right,
Look,
Mr. Okpa.
if you were to write your piece, I'm sorry.
No, we need to wrap the conversation up. I look forward to speaking with you again, and I think the next conversation I would like to have with you is knowing whether you feel Donald Trump and J.D. Vance will self-implode, because those are the signs that I see currently. They might just implode on themselves, but we'll see. Looking forward to more conversations with you. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Hey, the world is full of intrigues. That's why we are here to look at them and give our own views. Thank
Absolutely.
you, guys.
You're welcome.